to even scout a guy like that because you can't prepare for his size and his speed, and you also don't know which Cam Newton you're going to get. And I think that's the variable that kind of like, could make or break the Saints. There are some times when Cam Newton looks like he's the best player on the football field. And then there are other times when Cam Newton looks like he couldn't read a defense to save his life. So like, it really just depends on what guy you get. The reason why Carolina went out and they scouted guys and got guys like Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess is because Cam Newton tends to throw the ball a little high. So if you got a 6'5" receiver, it's almost hard to overthrow him.
Yeah. Well, when he's got a cannon of an arm like he does, that's why he throws it so daggum high and hard. Brett Favre used to do the exact same thing. Tons of high passes.
Exactly. And so, with that being said, when you have a guy like that who came into his own last year, you almost have to wonder what's going on with Cam this year. Is it the O-line? Is it the lack of a running game? Or is it, what I like to say the biggest issue that Carolina's facing, and that's they're now being the hunted. They're used to being the guys that, go out there and want to prove that they've got one of the better defenses and one of the better games. And, last year they found a rallying cry around Cam with the dancing and all of that. But this year, there's no dancing because you're going to get everybody's best shot, not just the NFC South. Everybody wants to take on the Carolina Panthers. And I think that could be the determining factor in their season, which it has been so far. They haven't been able to adjust just yet of being not only the team that lost the Super Bowl, but the team that's now the hunted. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out this coming Sunday with the Saints.
Well, I think for me, it's not just which Cam Newton you're going to get argument. For me, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, I really think that the injury that happened week 1 that didn't happen, the one that went unrecorded, the one that we're saying was the first concussion, has really affected his play this year. And I pointed this out. He's throwing for his lowest completion percentage since 2012, the year after his rookie year, and he has a much more talented receiving group with Kelvin Benjamin healthy and Greg Olsen, and like you said, Funches. And also, he's thrown 5 interceptions to only 6 touchdowns. And it's not like the offense is the one that got worse this offseason. Their defense certainly got worse, and I'm sure that's provided less scoring opportunities. But hate Cam Newton if you want, all the listeners out there, but Cam Newton has never been a one-to-one touchdown to interception guy. And for him to be that way the first 4 games shows me that injury is still lingering and that his head, and no pun intended, is still rocking. And, I want him to play healthy. I wish no injury on any player, but it's obviously affecting him and the Carolina Panthers.
Again, I want to make sure I point this out when it comes to Carolina. As you said, there's not a lot that's changed about their team offensively. But the offensive line, for some reason, has regressed a great deal.
Yeah.
You're looking at a guy like Michael Orr, who kind of played well above what we've seen him play thus far in his career last season. And now
blindside level.
Exactly. So, but the thing is that he got blindsided and had a concussion in and of himself. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's a factor as well. The running game with Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart, I think losing D'Angelo Williams is a lot bigger loss than Carolina led on to.
Yeah.
Last year you had Michael, Tolbert step up, and you had guys like, Fozzie Whitaker step up, but they're not D'Angelo Williams. And not having D'Angelo with Jonathan Stewart, that hurts their running game. And Jonathan Stewart has never been a guy that's played an entire season himself. So without him being in there for the running game, Carolina's just a different team right now. And Kelvin Benjamin could be a gift and a curse to Carolina right now. Last year, Cam had to spread the ball around, and he couldn't depend on Kelvin being there. This year, Kelvin's there, and I wonder if it's a need. I remember in the early game, I believe it was week 2, Kelvin Benjamin didn't have a catch. And I think the following week, I think Cam forced it a little bit to him, and I'm wondering if that's a little bit of offensive play calling, or is it the idea that Cam realized that, last year I didn't have my guy. This year he's here. Let me see if I can get him the ball and get his numbers up. But, he's definitely a difference maker. Let's get him the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's forcing it.
Well, let me back up just a little bit because of last night's game and throw this name out there because I didn't really know too much about him. I knew he was a backup for Carolina last year, but Cameron Artis-Payne looked pretty good running the ball against the Tampa Bay defense. Young running back that I really wasn't too familiar with, but like I said earlier, 18 attempts, 85 yards, looked strong. And secondly, Kelvin Benjamin to me is not a lot of people picked him as like the next Calvin Johnson type, the whole 1,600 yards, catch the ball wherever type deal. To me, he's not that. But I will say I expect more big play out of him, like more deep ball jump type deals. And I don't know what it is, and maybe you're right in what you're mentioning, possibly knee or something like that. He just doesn't seem to have that same like oomph and explosiveness that you would expect for not only a guy of his size, but a guy of his combine stats coming out of college. He just doesn't seem to have that, pizzazz and the ability that we thought he did coming out, and even showed last year before he got injured. So it might be a case of that entire Carolina offense is just not at 100%. This guy's playing at 70, this guy's playing at 85, and they just can't get all the pieces together at one time.
Wouldn't shock me if that has a lot to do with it, but I kind of want to say that not last year was an anomaly, but I think it was. I think they were a year ahead of schedule, and this year might have been their year, but the injuries have definitely taken into effect. You lose Josh Norman, and say what you will about Josh Norman, whether or not he only plays zone coverage or whatever the knocks are on him. He was a difference maker for that team, and Carolina is struggling. They just lost Benabin Wickery. They cut him after his game with Julio Jones. You don't have Josh Norman. Roman Harper, he's 137 years old, but he played an integral role with the Carolina Panthers. They have lost a lot of guys in the secondary in their pass rush. Charles Johnson has yet to step up. The guys in the middle, like Star Lotulelei, they still have yet to show that they were ready to take that next step. And right now, Carolina's defense is failing it, and I think it's kind of trickles over to the offensive side because the offense believes, okay, now we have to score more. That's not their thing. Carolina is much like a Rex Ryan or, the ground and pound type, but that's not what they're doing. Riverboat Ron has to show up again or Carolina season is done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. As I said, if Carolina goes 1-5, which is what they would do if they lost to New Orleans, that's it. There's no more argument for them possibly coming back because Atlanta, and I said this maybe 10 minutes ago, Atlanta, when they beat Denver to me, that showed that even though I 100% believe in my heart that they will collapse, they never seem to make it when pressure gets put on them. But when they hit 4-1 and beat the Denver Broncos on an away game, that moved them into the legit category for me. And when I put somebody in legit category, that means that they're probably going to win the division. And if any team is going to make the playoffs in the NFC South, it has to be the division game because wild card is basically already off the table with teams like Green Bay and Philly having only one loss and being the 5th and 6th seed. Yeah, I know, only 25% of the season's been played, but when you're that far behind, the Saints' really only chance and the Carolina Panthers being in the same division is to win that division title itself. And if they can't beat the Saints, they go 1-5, their shot's over. And it's the Saints at 2-3 still have a very unlikely chance, but it's there. But at 1-5, you're done.
Carolina's done right now, and I know it's kind of, I know what you said. Only 1/4 of the season has been played. Thus, Carolina's done, and here's why: they don't know how to be the come from behind team. And by that, I don't mean you're down 14-7 with in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes left. No, I mean they don't know how to be the team that's 1-4 and have success. Because all of their success, although they are the 3-time division champs, has been as front runners.
Mm-hmm.
They started off a little rocky here and there, and they were able to. But at this point in the season, Carolina was able to turn it around and go the opposite way. That's not what's happening now. You can blame it on injuries. That's a factor. Many teams are injured right now. I mean, heck, the Minnesota Vikings lost Adrian Peterson and Teddy Bridgewater, and yet they're still there. So you can't really harp too much on injuries. But with the Carolina Panthers, their success, true success, has been dancing and dabbing their way all the way to the top. They don't know how to be the come from behind guys. They don't know how to start off, 1-5 and make a comeback. They're done now. And of course, in their situation, you've already lost a division game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're possibly going to lose. I don't see Cam Newton playing this game. I don't. I think Ron Rivera might panic, and it could be a factor in him playing, but I don't think he's going to play because Carolina has a bye week next week. Why even risk it?
Well, let me throw this out there, and you're coming through a little light, Brian, but let me throw this because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But Ian Rappaport just reported that Saints safety and what he's big for us is special teamer Eric Harris just had surgery today for a torn ACL and meniscus that he suffered tearing while picking off Drew Brees in practice yesterday. So that means he is another secondary player that New Orleans is going to lose for the entire season. And not only does it affect the secondary, he was one of those few people on the special teams that was doing pretty well. So that's a big loss for us.
Wow.
Yeah, just pile it on.
You know, I would say this is an opportunity for Jairus Byrd to finally earn his money, but you can't count on Jairus Byrd to stay healthy. Eric Harris looks like he was going to be the next guy up to be in that 3 safety look. Von Bell is now your starter. Of course, Kenny Vaccaro will be there as well. And you can't really count on Roman Harper being in that 3 safety package unless you're going to play him closer to the line of scrimmage as a blitzer, more like a linebacker type of role. Eric Harris was that guy that can kind of do both. And now that he's gone, if Jairus Byrd can't get it together now, it's way time not only that you bench him, but it may be possible that you just inactivate him for the rest of the season. I'm sorry that Eric Harris is hurt, but Jairus Byrd has to take advantage of the situation, and if he doesn't, just inactivate him because he'll never be able to flip the switch on and be, who the Saints thought they were getting when they signed him.
Well, I think irregardless, I think Byrd he'll be on the team because this is weird to say, but he's the only healthy secondary player we really have. It's so odd to say that about Jairus Byrd. But you're right. He has to step up. I mean, Von Bell, he might be the answer in the future. But right now, I mean, he's not ready. We saw that against San Diego. He's not ready. He didn't play terrible. I'm not knocking the guy, but he's not ready. And how many people can we really afford to do the trial by fire method? I mean, we really can't. I mean, we got to stop this madness. We do. If we're going to have any chance at really having a legitimate playoff threat. And I feel bad for Eric because, like I said, he's one of those people who didn't get enough credit for what he does because he was mostly that special teams ace type of guy. And I feel horrible for him. I mean, and just somebody on Twitter that I follow, and he follows me, just mentioned this. I realize that injuries are a part of football, but does it not seem like the Saints in the past 2 or 3 years have an abnormal amount of injuries?
I hate to say this because whenever it's said, it fuels the fire that's already there. But I'm almost convinced that the Greenbrier curse is real. I'm almost convinced. I mean, if it wasn't, then it has to be at least considerable at this point. It's almost amazing that since the Saints have went to the Greenbrier, to get away from the New Orleans Heat and, to get more practice reps, more snaps, it almost seems as if it's made the team softer. Now, that could coincide with the new CBA that doesn't allow you to practice as hard or train as hard in the offseason. All of that could be a factor. But for right now, it's just more fun to say it's the Greenbrier curse. So I'm going to go with that because ever since this team has went to the Greenbrier, they haven't had a healthy season since. And it's an abnormal amount of injuries. It's not just 1 or 2 guys here and there. The Saints' favorite procedure used to be the groin, the sports hernia surgery. Mm-hmm. That used to be their favorite procedure. It seemed like every other guy would go out on a week or two and go get a sports hernia surgery, almost like as if the doctor was giving a 2-for-1 special. Now, everyone seems to be just suffering from multiple injuries, and it's season-ending injuries. And it's freak nature injuries. It's not like somebody, like if you look at Sheldon Rankin, okay, he'll be back, and that's great. We're all excited about that. But on a goal line stand, the dude snaps his fibula. Weird. You look at a guy like, Kyle Wilson, nickelback. Supposed to be a starting nickelback. Freak injury. He's working out and tears a muscle. Done. So it's almost like freak injuries, almost to where you want to give it credence. But my goodness, this is just ridiculous at this point. The Saints are basically leading the league on IR. They could probably start an all-star team with the IR right now.
I really hate to talk about injuries for multiple reasons, but it's hard to avoid as a Saints fan because, I mean, we've watched so many good players, and especially players that we didn't expect to be as good as they are. For example, Delvin Breaux. Nobody expected him to come out and be as strong as he was transferring into the NFL. Nobody expected P.J. Williams to step up the way that he did.